eyes, gather around the campfire and join me for another story deep in the woods on this dark night. Chapter 1. Dear Mother. The kingdom of Montebello awoke under a sky streaked with the hues of dawn. The golden light spilled into the busy slums where Isabel lived. As she completed her daily household chores, the warm morning sun touched her pale skin, and her icy blue eyes sparkled with every splash of water as she stomped on the fabrics soaking in the wooden basin. Despite her humble beginnings, Isabel embraced her life with gratitude, which was a fruition to the lessons her mother had imparted. Although Isabel was uneducated, she was wise enough to find joy in the simple things and never grumbled about their status in society's hierarchy. Her appreciation for her mother's sacrifices was boundless, that she often expressed it in songs of love and gratitude during times of scarcity. Her father was a subject shrouded in silence, a past her mother, Teresa, never spoke of, and Isabel never pressed. She understood enough to harbor a deep, personal hatred for the pain her existence had caused her mother. Yet, in her mother's eyes, there was no hint of resentment, but only endless love and devotion for her daughter. Isabel, dear. Teresa's sweet voice broke through her thoughts, bringing a smile to her face. Yes, Mother, Isabel responded, looking up from her task. Teresa approached, holding a bundle of blankets. I thought you were almost done. I need these washed as well. Winter is coming. Isabel nodded as her hands immediately moved efficiently. I shall take care of it forthwith. Are you heading to work now? Yes, dear. The pub shall be busy today, Teresa replied. Indeed. Is there a celebration of which I am unaware? Isabel asked as her curiosity piqued. Teresa chuckled, patting her daughter's shoulder. One of the soldiers who frequents the pub is to be wed. The men are celebrating. That is wonderful news, Isabel said with a smile, kneeling to pick up a clothespin. Teresa watched her daughter fondly. One day, when you marry, your ceremony will be grander than all. Caught off guard, Isabel stumbled, earning a laugh from her mother. Mother, please, I do not wish to marry. I desire only to remain by your side. Goodness, Isabel, life is lonely without a family of your own. You are my gift, the reason I rise no matter how many times I fall. Do the same when you are a mother, Teresa said, her voice filled with affection. Isabel nodded, although her heart resisted the idea. All she desired was a peaceful life with her mother, to give her the happiness she deserved, even if it meant sacrificing her own. Nevertheless, it is your life to decide, Teresa added playfully, though I do need someone to boss around. Mother, Isabel retorted with a laugh. I shall be off then. Take care, Teresa said, kissing her daughter's forehead before leaving. Isabel watched her mother go and took a deep breath before returning to her chores. The courtyard where she worked was alive with the sounds of the slum's children playing, vendors shouting, carts clattering on cobblestone streets. By midday, Isabel had finished the laundry and moved on to other tasks. She swept their small living space, tidied up the sparse furniture, and prepared a simple meal for her mother's return. As she mended a tear in one of Teresa's old dresses, a knock at the door startled her. She immediately stood up and opened the door to find Mrs. Hawthorne, their kind elderly neighbor, holding a loaf of fresh bread. Good afternoon, Isabel, Mrs. Hawthorne greeted warmly. I baked too much this morning and thought you might like some. Thank you, Mrs. Hawthorne, Isabel replied gratefully, inviting her in. As Mrs. Hawthorne stepped inside, she glanced around the tidy room. You have been busy. How fares your mother? She is at work, putting in extra hours, Isabel explained, setting the bread on the table. Mrs. Hawthorne nodded with understanding in her eyes. Your Mrs. Hawthorne conversing through various topics, from the latest news in the kingdom to tips on managing a household. The elderly woman's presence was comforting, which reminded Isabel that even in the midst of hardship, there were still moments of kindness and community. Eventually, Mrs. Hawthorne took her leave, and Isabel returned to her mending. The rhythm of the needle and thread was soothing, and it allowed her mind to drift. She thought about her mother's words earlier that day. The notion of marriage was foreign to her desires, yet the conviction in her mother's voice made her wonder if there was more to life than the simple existence she cherished. As the sun began its descent and casted long shadows across the courtyard, Isabel rose to prepare for her mother's return to ensure the small meal she had prepared was ready. Just then, the door creaked open, and Teresa stepped inside with her face weary, but lit with a smile at the sight of her daughter. "Welcome home, Mother," Isabel greeted warmly, taking her mother's cloak and hanging it by the door. "Thank you, dear. The pup was indeed busy today," Teresa said, sinking into a chair with a sigh of relief. "I have prepared a meal for us," Isabel announced, bringing the simple fare to the table. The two ate together and shared stories of their day. As they finished their meal and made sure nothing was left on their plates, Isabel hesitated before speaking. "Mother, you spoke of marriage this morning. Do you truly wish for me to marry?" Teresa looked at her daughter thoughtfully. "Isabel, I wish for you to have a life full of love and companionship. Marriage is one path to that. However, what I desire most is your happiness. If remaining by my side brings you joy, then that is enough for me." Isabel nodded as her heart swelled with affection. "Your happiness is my greatest concern, Mother. I will think on your words." Chapter 2. An Unseen Burden. Isabel, who was ever observant, notices the weariness etched in her mother's eyes. "Did you manage any rest at work?" Isabel inquired, her voice laced with concern. "Very little," Teresa admitted, "but I don't mind. It is heartening to witness such joy and celebration." Isabel nodded and felt relieved that her mother found comfort to her hard work. "I finished the laundry and tidied up. Mrs. Hawthorne stopped by with fresh bread." "That was kind of her," Teresa said with mere eyes brightening. "Mrs. Hawthorne always looks out for us." "Indeed," Isabel agreed. "She also gave me some advice on mending clothes. I believe I am improving." Teresa smiled, gently squeezing Isabel's hand. "You are doing wonderfully, Isabel. I am immensely proud of you." Isabel blushed. "Thank you, Mother. I just want to ease your burdens." "You do more than enough," Teresa assured her. "I am grateful every day for you. How was your day, dear?" "It was good. Busy, but I like to stay occupied," Isabel replied with a smile. "I had some time to think as well." "Oh," Teresa raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "About the future," Isabel said softly. "And how much you mean to me." Teresa's eyes shimmered with gratitude. "You mean the world to me, my dear." As the two finished their meal, Isabel began clearing the table and stacking the dishes neatly on the table. Teresa joined her and helped carry the empty plates to the sink. As she lifted the dirty dishes, Teresa suddenly gasped and faltered. "Mother," Isabel cried, rushing to her side as the plates crashed to the floor. She immediately guided her mother to a chair as her voice trembled. "What is wrong? Are you all right?" Teresa's face had drained of color, and her breathing becomes shallow. I do not know," she whispered, wincing. Isabel's heart raced. "Just breathe, Mother. I will get some help. Stay with me." Teresa nodded weakly, while her eyes were filled with horror. Isabel ran to the door, calling for help into the night. Spotting a familiar neighbor's candlelit window, she rushed to it, knocking urgently onto the door. As the door creaked open, it revealed Mr. Jenkins, with his face creased out of concern, seeing Isabel all worked up. "Isabel, what is wrong?" "It's my mother," Isabel blurted out. "She's in pain. I do not know what to do." Mr. Jenkins promptly grabbed his coat and lantern without hesitation. "Take me to her," he said firmly. Isabel led the way back to their small home, while her heart pounded with fear. As they arrived inside, Teresa saw then and managed a weak smile at Mr. Jenkins. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. Mr. Jenkins knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "What happened?" he asked, his tone calm and reassuring. "I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my chest. I could hardly breathe," Teresa explained, struggling through the pain. Mr. Jenkins nodded with his brow furrowed in worry. "We need to get you to a doctor," he said. "Isabel, help me get your mother ready." They carefully assisted Teresa to her feet and supported her as they made their way through the night. Upon reaching the clinic, the doctor, seeing the emergency, quickly assisted them inside to assess Teresa's condition. Within minutes, his face grew grave. "It is serious," he said quietly. "Your mother has suffered a heart attack." Isabel felt panic surge through her as the doctor continued. "She needs to be hospitalized and start medication immediately." Isabel's heart sank. Being one of the people who live in the slums, they barely made ends meet. The thought of affording medical treatment seemed insurmountable. "I'm sorry, doctor," Isabel said, her voice small. We do not have enough money. Are there any alternatives to treat her while I look for the means to earn?" Mr. Jenkins placed a comforting hand on Isabel's shoulder, his expression sympathetic yet determined. "We will find a way, Isabel." The doctor nodded. "I will start the necessary treatment. We can discuss payment plans later. Right now, your mother's health is the priority." As Teresa was settled into a hospital bed, Isabel stayed by her side, holding her hand. Isabel whispered a silent prayer, vowing to do whatever it took to save her mother. Isabel spent the night at the clinic, her eyes never leaving her mother's face. The room was quiet, except for the occasional murmur of the doctor. As dawn approached, Mr. Jenkins, who had stayed as well, approached Isabel with a gentle expression. "You should rest, Isabel. You've been up all night," he said kindly. "I cannot leave her," Isabel replied, her voice resolute. "She needs me." Mr. Jenkins nodded in understanding. "You'll stay with her. Just rest in the chair for a while. You'll be no good to her if you collapse from exhaustion." Reluctantly, Isabel agreed. She settled into the chair beside her mother's bed, while her head rested on her arms. Despite her worry, the exhaustion soon overtook her, and she drifted into a light sleep. A few hours later, Isabel awoke to find the doctor speaking quietly with Mr. Jenkins. She quickly stood as her heart pounded with anxiety. "Doctor, how is she?" The doctor turned to Isabel, his expression serious but hopeful. "Your mother is stable for now. The immediate danger has passed, but she will need ongoing care and medication to prevent another attack." Isabel nodded as relief flooded through her. "Thank you, doctor. What must we do next?" "She will need to stay here for a few days for observation," the doctor explained. "After that, she will require regular checkups and medication." As the doctor left, Isabel sat down again, holding her mother's hand. Just then, Teresa's eyes fluttered open, and she gave her daughter a weak smile. "Isabel, you look exhausted. You should rest." "I am fine, Mother," Isabel said in a soft voice. "I was so worried about you." Teresa squeezed Isabel's hand weakly. "I am sorry to have caused you such worry, but I am so proud of you for staying strong." Tears welled up in Isabel's eyes. "I just want you to be well, Mother. We will find a way